Welcome to literary and jury charge practice. Let's get started with this literary, and we actually have been reading from it, and this will be the last section called Finding Balance. The title of the literary is Self-Care for Court Reporters. So the last section, Finding Balance. Here we go. These three areas, mind, body, and spirit, are all connected and overlap with each other. JCLIT suggested thinking about how much time you spend in your mind, body, and spirit, perhaps creating a pie chart. Ideally, all three should be more or less in balance, I found. However, that I tend to spend the most time in my mind. I approximated about half, another third or so tending to my spirit through hobbies or taking the time to recharge each day, and the rest of my time to my body. Clearly not enough. Some activities, however, can fulfill the needs of more than one area at a time. For example, going for a walk is good exercise for the body, but spending the time in nature is also good for the spirit. Spending too much time in the mind can negatively affect people skills, but playing a strategic game with someone else is a good way to feed both the mind and the spirit. Finding balance can be challenging, but making sure the trio of mind, body, and spirit all are getting the attention they need is a good start. All right, I'm going to now read this legal opinion, and it's actually the legal opinion from a speed contest that was held at one time. And so this was read for the contest at 230 words per minute. We won't read it that fast though. Ready? On June 12, 1990, the defendant finished his work shift at approximately 4:30 p.m. After work, he obtained a ride to the Village Inn Tavern. At the tavern, the defendant made several phone calls attempting to locate someone to give him a ride to his car. The defendant also ordered a can of beer and drank approximately 1/3 of the beer. While at the tavern, the defendant complained of not feeling well, dizziness, and double vision. The tavern owner then agreed to take the defendant to get his car. As he was leaving the bar, the defendant took an unopened can of beer with him. The defendant and his wife had recently separated and were arguing about which of them would retain possession of their automobile. It appears from the record that the defendant parked the car in the parking lot across the river so that his wife would not be able to locate the automobile and take possession of it. At approximately 7:30 p.m., the defendant was traveling north on Route 2. Robert Barker was driving south on Route 2 with his wife, Karen Barker. It appears the defendant's car gradually crossed the center line and traveled in a straight line for approximately 200 yards in the southbound lane before it collided head-on with the Barker automobile. As a result of the accident, the defendant and Mr. Barker suffered severe injuries. Mrs. Barker also sustained serious injuries and died 3 days later as a result of those injuries. Eyewitnesses reported the defendant crossed the center line in a consistent, even fashion without attempting to swerve, brake, change directions, or stop. Witnesses also indicated that both the defendant and Mr. Barker were traveling at the posted speed limit. A bystander stated the defendant was semi-conscious immediately after the accident and his breath smelled of alcohol. An investigation of the defendant's vehicle immediately after the accident revealed one open can of beer, which was 1/2 full, in the driver's door compartment, several empty beer cans on the passenger's floor, 4 full beer cans on the rear floor, 3 empty beer cans on the driver's floor, and an empty glass which smelled of beer on the ground near the car. The defendant was transported to Three Rivers Hospital, where testing revealed he had a blood alcohol level of less than 1/100th of 1%. Now let's get back to some jury charge. The subject, a plea for probation. Ready? I would like to ask this court how much further a man could go in an attempt to rehabilitate himself than the defendant in this case, August J. Casey. When he was sick and in the hospital, he sent for the priest. The priest told him to make himself clear with God, and it was with the purpose of making himself clear with God that he came into the state's attorney's office, told them about these cases, told them about other cases in which the statute of limitations had already run out, cooperated with them fully, took his files, his personal records, everything that they wanted into the state's attorney's office, signed statements, and answered every question. Now the court knows that maybe the state's attorney's office probably would have got him eventually in some of these cases, but Your Honor knows how difficult is an embezzlement cause before the court. This man could have fought for years, but he wanted to make peace with God, so he came in and confessed everything that was humanly possible to confess in connection with these cases, submitted himself to the court, and, Your Honor, is just waiting for your justice. I believe the man has been rehabilitated. He wants to make restitution to these people. I think he should be given a chance. He has suffered the greatest loss that a man can have. He has lost his license to practice law that he fought so valiantly to get. He has lost a means of making a livelihood in a profession that he has practiced for 20 years. What greater depth of human degradation can be asked of a man desiring to prostrate himself before the court? I think, Judge, if ever a man came before this court with the proper spirit of humility and ready to take his place in society, that man is August Casey, and that he should be placed on probation. I cannot say that I have ever felt as strongly for any other defendant that I have represented as I have for this man. I now rest. Shall we get back to our legal opinion? All right. Ready? While treating the defendant's injuries, he was given an MRI scan to determine whether he had sustained any head injuries. The MRI results indicated the defendant had an undiagnosed brain disorder in the portion of his brain that regulates consciousness. The defendant stood trial for involuntary manslaughter. During the trial, the defendant's son testified that the defendant had been having memory loss for several months prior to the accident, and that he believed the defendant had seen a doctor about that condition. Similarly, the tavern owner stated the defendant had complained of feeling ill during the months preceding the collision, and he had complained of dizziness, memory loss, and double vision on the night of the accident. She also believed the defendant recently had been treated by a physician. Defense witness Dr. Ronald Washington reported the defendant's MRI scan showed an undiagnosed brain disorder affecting the reticular activating system of his brain. Dr. Washington reasoned that because this portion of the brain affects one's consciousness, this disorder could have caused the defendant to suddenly lose consciousness immediately before the accident. He also indicated the defendant had developed this brain abnormally approximately 4 to 8 months prior to the accident, and the disease was not caused by chronic alcohol abuse. All right, this literary material is called Family Ties. Ready? Let's say you wanted to create the perfect court reporter and you decided to choose Mary Kay Howe, RPR RMR of Lawrence, Kansas as your model. Here's how you'd start. Have family members as role models. Check. 2 older sisters, Vesta York and Susanna Hastings, who inspired her. Choose best teacher ever. Check. Mary Smith Agron at Brown Mackey Business College, Salina, Kansas, who went on to become an NCRA president. undergo baptism by fire at the age of 19. Double check. Mary Kay started in court on a 3-week trial with newspaper reporters at her door and thousands of pages when, of course, the verdict was appealed. Conduct career to inspire other family members. Triple check. First cousin Deanne Bezin is an official in Wichita. Daughter Miranda Cummings has been an official in Shawnee County since 2007 and became managing court reporter in January. Daughter-in-law Sarah Davison went to school with Miranda and has been reporting since 2006. Mary Kay said that when her current judge took the bench, she told me jokingly, "I knew I could never say anything bad about you to reporters across the state because you'd be related to them." Oh, and one other criterion dear to the hearts of all NCRA members: be active in every way in promoting the profession. Mary Kay has served her state association, including as president in 1989-90, and 2 years ago made special presentations to the state Supreme Court and the legislature when officials' jobs were in jeopardy. She even spoke last August at the NCRA Convention and Expo in New York on advocating official reporter value in the court world. When we contacted Mary Kay about doing this story on her and her family of court reporters, she rounded them and their stories up in short order. Each had something to contribute through email about their common love, and of course, it was all perfectly punctuated with no misspellings. Vesta, RMRCRR, said that she and sister Sue lived together in a little studio apartment while in Clark's business school in Topeka, a year apart in speed, and Sue eventually ended up working for the same judge that Vesta's brand new teacher had worked for. Her judge would not allow her to ever interrupt if she didn't hear something or understand a word, Vesta said of teacher Leila Coxon's former judge. At Clark's, we had to pass every speed test 3 times at 99% accuracy, Vesta explains. Leila drilled into our heads that if we missed 10 words every 5 minutes at the 99%, we were missing hundreds of words a day. She adds that Leila had the foresight in 1971-72, way before computers, to teach them to write homonyms differently. Little did any of us know what a tremendous asset that would be when Cat came along in the 1980s. Sue, now retired from a position as an official, remembers that an attorney had spoken to their older sister Jan about becoming a court reporter. She came home talking about court reporting and said she didn't want to do that. Sue recalled, "I said, I do. I was a freshman in high school at the time and never changed my mind." She and Vesta each started at Clark's 2 weeks out of high school. Miranda and her sister-in-law, Sarah Davison, were classmates at Herndon Reporting in Olathe, but Miranda finished her education with Mary Smith and her online school in 2007. She then went on to complete Ardith Spy's online school, Verbatim Careers Institute out of Dallas, Texas, for voice writing. It was when Miranda and Sarah were working together in Shawnee County that Miranda introduced Sarah to her brother TJ, and the rest is happy history, marriage, and 2 kids. All right, back to a little bit of jury charge practice. This jury charge is called Reply to Appeal for Probation. Ready? In this case, your counsel has made a very excellent plea in your behalf. I know you are sincere, just as he was sincere when he presented your matter, and in asking for probation. I am also favorably impressed with the attitude of some of the complaining witnesses here and the presentation that the public defender has made. However, this is not the type of case that the court feels comes within the category of a probation case. You are a lawyer and as such an officer of the court. As an officer of the court, you hold a position of trust and confidence by virtue of licensing by the Supreme Court to practice your profession. You knew the difference between right and wrong, and apparently you did not have the will to follow the dictates of conscience that the Lord gave you and resist that temptation. There were probably many times over the period of the last 10 or 12 years when you had occasion to reflect on what you were doing and on the trust and responsibilities with which you were vested. All right, that will conclude our literary and jury charge practice.